What is up, everybody? Happy Thursday. I'm BobbyFi here with my man, Eric Sheetshaver. As always, we are bringing you a Draftkings. We're going to be talking about this slate. We're going to break it down. We're going to go game by game. We're going to talk about our favorite plays at the end. Terrible night for me last night. I basically locked into D'Angelo Russell. And honestly, I feel fine about the play as long as the game stays close, especially on FanDuel where I had Russell paired with LeVert everywhere. Game stays close. You could argue you could possibly get like 90 to 100 out of that position, and that would have been very nice by me. But that's pretty much what happened. Sheets had a near miss night. He had to play a little Jokic. He did some good things. Sheets, what'd you think of last night? And then
I was happy with my two main ideas. I remember the first thing I said was I was going to play LeVert in every lineup across the board, and he ended up being more popular than I probably would have liked, even on Draftkings. But I really thought the Draftkings he wouldn't be 20% like he was, but he was. I think wasn't fooling anybody. And then my kind of off the board play kind of worked. Conley, at 50. Well, people were playing him on FanDuel at 4,200, but I don't know how many people played him on DraftKings at 5,100, and he hit 40 fantasy points, and that was really good. Mm-hmm. And like we were just going over just a couple of things. I only played 10 lineups or so on each side, and just it's kind of weird the way, I don't want to say luck or variance plays into this, but I had Culver and what's his name and Koji as my two main values on Minnesota, and I really didn't know which one I liked more. So I said, you know what, screw it, I'll just put half in one, half in the other. And of course, the way it worked out is my best lineups ended up with Culver and otherwise, and the worst ones ended up with the Koji, and just that's kind of the way it goes sometimes, I guess.
Isn't that weird how that happens? I mean, I personally had a strong take about playing Culver over a Koji, and I actually felt nervous about both of them. And on FanDuel, I actually skipped them for the most part. I didn't really play that much of them, which I think was fine. But obviously, Koji gets there. There was just a lot of ways to go. The ownership yesterday was just shocking. I actually was shocked that no one. We're going to have to keep on this Oladipo thing, by the way, because if he's going to play, and he only played 25 yesterday, but if he's really going to play 28 minutes and people aren't going to play him at 5K-ish, I think there's a huge problem in the industry.
Well, and we talked about also that, the other one of my FanDuel things that we put up before was that, who ended up being really, really low owned was still up here was Lowry also. And you could have played him with that was a pretty good idea I had to play a Lowry with Oladipo. And I took Bobby's pick. Thought Sabonis was a really, really sharp play up at that price range. He ended up only being 8%. And Tatum, thought I was eating the chalk with Tatum, and God knows what happened to him. No one played him. And then, again, this was just totally Bobby's idea, this whole idea. I just kind of made up at the end. Because paying up for Siakam at small forward when everybody was paying down, he ended up with 50 fantasy points at 8% ownership, and that was really, really sharp also. So,
this lineup is a 2v2 away from having 430 fantasy points.
Yeah, which probably would have gotten 100th in this tournament. But
no, I think 435 might have won it or something. At least
I think 450 got there. I think.
That was the $7 one. But in the 222, I think it was 430.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
I don't know if I would have had it in me to do this in the 222. But
so it brings up a good point this time of year, especially before the trade deadline, and obviously we should know before the games play today what's happening. But we had guys, that were sitting out late. It's partly why I didn't want to play heavy on the day where I was traveling to see my daughter. But I think that there was more to be gained out of the Denver situation than maybe I thought so initially. There were certainly some avenues that take. I ended up so heavily on a couple of different Miami. Well, I was speculative that Miami was going to trade potentially somebody, and unfortunately, what traded was not going to be a guy in the lineup. So they did trade somebody. Also, a trade that I honestly don't understand from their perspective, and I think it was an absolute steal for Memphis. I just want to get out there and say that. I think Justice Winslow is literally a perfect guy to fit into that Memphis team. Anyway, just want to throw that out there. But I'm ready to get into tonight's slate. I'm going to the Laker game tonight. I couldn't be more excited. Taking my daughter.
Nice.
We got the DraftKings suite going. They invited us.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so we're going to have a good time. Free food, free drinks. I've been on a cleanse, so I'm going to have to break that for this Laker game. And we're going to enjoy, give a little shout out to Kobe. We're going to get down there early. And
I like it.
Hopefully we'll have some money to win, and too, because we got the hammer. I'm going to be there, and it's.
You think you're going to get to see a Westbrook or no?
I hope so. If there was a guy who would play in this situation, I would imagine that Westbrook would try and muster it up, but we will see.
Dude, if he knew that you were coming, he would find a way to play.
I mean, there's no, but I think we can safely say that there's no one in the industry who likes, or not industry. I don't know if there's anyone in the world other than maybe his family who likes Westbrook better than I do. He's truly my guy.
Did the Dodgers trade Jock Peterson, by the way?
The Dodgers traded everybody. They got Mookie. We got Mookie now. We traded Jock Peterson because we don't have any room for him. Good pickup for the Angels, by the way. The Angels our lineup is just absolutely stacked.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers are just completely stacked as well. So good times in LA. We're going to be good for a while. Yep. I mean, I hate the Angels, but it's nice to be good. Anyway, we'll move on to today. No trades that we know of yet, but we are going to
no trades that we know of. Yeah, okay, there you go.
But there's definitely going to be some action. I mean, I would imagine at least we'll hear some rumors about things today. That's sort of where I'm at. But the first game of the night, what are your thoughts on this Orlando New York game? We have some extreme potential value, but it feels a little reachy to me. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
So this is really bizarre because, this is why I looked the whole slate beforehand. I will tell you right now that probably my favorite play of the night, considering what the rest of the slate's going to look like, might come from this game. And I guess we'll have to put it in context a little later, but let's for now say that I really love Vooch in this spot. Okay. Not so much in this spot per se, because, it looks to be like a pretty good play, but he's basically the exact same price, give or take, as Whiteside, who's going to be 4 times owned. And I think that Vooch has just as good of a shot to get to outscore Whiteside. So, again, it's if I really did look through all the games before circling back to this, and this is why, again, if I just go game by game, I might not have really gotten into Vooch as much. But I would say that Vooch does look like a good play. And considering, again, where I think ownership's going to end up going with Whiteside later, I really, really, I think I'm going to be really into Vooch in this game. I really don't have much else opinion. I mean, you can make a case for Aaron Gordon again, I suppose, but I really don't like anybody else in this game.
Yeah, a lot of guys you could make an argument for, but I don't know if I'm sort of with you on not loving that. I mean, it's a smaller slate. Fournier's price is certainly reasonable. Not somebody I play very often. Michael Carter-Williams stands out as the value at 3,900, getting those consistent minutes, 20 plus pretty much. I think he's at 20 plus in the last 5 games, 24 yesterday. I'm willing to take a shot on Michael Carter-Williams. What I'm not willing to do is probably play him at extremely high ownership with definitely a limited ceiling. So I probably would be below the field if they're high on him and above the field if they're low on him. I don't love that value, but I do like your Vooch call. It's a spot I don't see anyone really going to, especially he let me down last night. His game log will make you a little bit worried. Second of a back-to-back for a big man, you can get a little bit worried on the road, but it's just Boston to New York. It's not like a long trip. Okay, I mean, I can get behind the Vooch thing, and I think that's pretty much where my interest lies. With maybe I will get a Fournier or Williams if it fits. We'll sort of see at the end of the slate.
Okay. Anybody on the Knicks or no?
They sort of price everyone in at a point where I really don't feel good about it. And then we've got RJ Barrett probably coming back here. That would be probably my most likely interest, but I just can't figure out a way to play anybody personally on this Knicks team. Randall makes a lot of sense just from the guy who can get you there, but on a small slate. But I mean, it's a tough matchup. He's 8.3 now. I'd rather play Vooch than him. I think we'll just pass.
Okay. All right. So going to Philadelphia, Milwaukee, this is the only thing that's going to make it really, really straining for me to play Vooch is, you could play 2 centers if you have to, if you want to, but because Embiid looks really, really strong for me. Listen, Philadelphia's been playing like crap on the road specifically.
Yep.
All I know is that on Christmas Day, he beat Giannis into freaking submission.
They're the only team to beat that team badly, by the way. The only team. In the last 2 years or 2 regular seasons, the only team that really stomped them. And they've done it.
Yes. So I'm perfectly willing to take the position that Embiid has the ability to do it again. Again, I don't know where ownership's going to go, and it's going to be difficult for me to I'd love to play both those guys, both those centers. It's going to be really, really hard with everything else I want to play, though. So that's the only thing that's really preventing me from going full Vooch is that Embiid looks like such a really good play. The other two sides to the thing you can do on Philadelphia is both Simmons and Harris. Now, again, I know it's a tough matchup or whatever against Milwaukee, but Simmons is only 8,100, and he can, he can do some stuff. And Tobias again is more of like kind of a scheme thing, right? If Milwaukee's gonna give up a bunch of threes, I guess Tobias would be their main guy to be shooting threes, I suppose. So I'm not a big Tobias Harris and GPP type guy in general.
Right. But did you freeze up there?
I'm gonna get down.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I had a little frozen. It was a hiccup on my end.
No, you were good. Is that I'm not a big Tobias Harris guy from GPPs in general, but he is going to be shooting a bunch of threes, and this is the team he wants to shoot him again. So I don't know, maybe. On Milwaukee, you could look at it two ways. On the one hand, Giannis got totally just lit up on Christmas Day in front of the entire universe. On the other hand, he got lit up on Christmas Day in front of the entire universe. So I'm pretty sure that he's going to be out to kill people today. I don't know how exactly that translates, but he certainly looks like a good play. And if the game stays close, which I can't imagine it wouldn't, since the last time was Philadelphia played him tough. Giannis has upside from his minutes as usual, and it came that could stay close. And you talk about revenge. I mean, I have a feeling he's had this game on his schedule for a while. Now, I will say also that from a scheme perspective, I remember what Philly did in that game. They basically packed everybody into the lane and played 8 feet off of Giannis and said, okay, try to shoot your threes. And it didn't really work out well for Giannis in that game. So it's going to be a real fun game to watch. I'll say that.
Yeah, I'm very interested in this game. I really enjoyed one of my favorite games to watch of the year was the Milwaukee New Orleans game the other night. Just for the fact that I got to see Giannis. First of all, Giannis, I'm falling more in love with him as a player. I understand that people say the things about his shooting, whatever. This guy is what's different about him than the other guys is he plays with that intensity all the time. I don't remember anyone his size really ever being like that. I really don't. Shaq wasn't. He was give or come and go. And Giannis is he's like a Shaq, but he cares all the time. He's a guy who I have a lot of interest in. But this is literally the perfect team that can match up with him, in my opinion. I will point out that Tobias Harris, going back even a little bit, a couple years, has had pretty great games going back to Milwaukee. Milwaukee is, for those who don't know, the place that drafted him. That's where he was. He was a Milwaukee guy. He wasn't drafted. He was traded to them on draft day, I guess it was, or right after. But anyway, I think that he's cheap enough that it's weird with the Bucks because they rate so well defensively that people don't want to play against them. But the Bucks, their whole strategy is play as fast as they'll push the ball. They'll keep going, and they're gonna make you try and they're gonna think they're gonna win because they have more possessions than you. It's kind of genius, and they do it from a defensive standpoint. But I just think it's worth taking a shot on Tobias here. Forget the narrative part of it. Just 6,600 is a very reasonable price. I really like these guys. I worry a little bit about this game, only just because watching Milwaukee with your eyes at home and then seeing Philadelphia on the road,
it's brutal. It's brutal.
But I think Philadelphia, this is partly why I still have Philadelphia coming out of the East. I know it sounds crazy, or to other people it sounds crazy. I think that they just match up with this team better than everyone else does. And they're not fully there. They're not fully healthy. But I would be inclined to play especially Embiid, but then also some Simmons and some Harris. I think that their prices are extremely reasonable. I think Giannis's price is beyond extremely reasonable. I just think that the only thing you worry about you worry about how, I guess, minutes. Like, he's not going to play 38 like the other superstars, or 36, but should be fine in his minutes. The overlooked guy, as always, but he's starting to catch fire, is Chris Middleton. I don't really think that I'm going to have a ton of interest in anybody outside of Giannis, but I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Chris Middleton has been an absolute monster. And forget the game that Giannis was at where he put up 50 real-life points. He's put up 40, 46, and 48 fantasy points the last 3 games. On this kind of slate, you would love that production from him. So he's certainly somebody I would consider, but nobody else except for Giannis is at all on my list. And even Giannis, we're going to have a really tough conversation because the spend ups at the end makes it really hard to play Giannis.
Yep. Again, I was kind of looking at it the other way. I was thinking that that Giannis makes the other spend ups tough to play. I mean, you could do it. You can do either way. I
No,
think that's the decisions you have to make, obviously, right?
yeah, and that means that you're a little bit on the narrative side of this thing because just from a pure matchup standpoint, you would think that the Lakers guys would be certainly more popular. That's just my personal take.
I don't know. Every time I see Giannis play, he scores 65 points. You know what I mean? I just.
Oh, I know. I'm with you. I love playing Giannis. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But Anthony Davis at 9,700 was.
I know.
Probably like.
I know.
The same ceiling as Giannis, maybe even higher. I know that sounds weird to think about, but really, when you think about the ultimate ceiling, there's a lot. Milwaukee beats you a lot of ways. The Lakers beat you with two guys. So we'll get into it at the end of the show.
Okay, so let's talk about this New Orleans-Chicago game. So this is what I guess I know the answer to this. But why is Kobe White going to be 40% owned? You know what I mean? Like, I guess I'm being I don't know, but this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at these Chicago guys being so chalky.
I'll tell you why, but go ahead.
One of the reasons why, first of all, is because of the existence of Giannis and LeBron and Lillard and Harden and whatever on the slate, that you'd love to get those guys in. And yeah, against New Orleans, you can't get a better matchup. But I don't know. Let's go through this. So yeah, it's a 230-point total. New Orleans loves to push the ball, and certainly going to want to attack this game. So first of all, Chicago side, the very obvious play is Zach LaVine, and each time I swear to you that he's going to be really popular. This time, he just never is. I just don't quite seem to. I understand why, I suppose, but look, this is a perfect matchup. He's Zach LaVine. He can do whatever he wants, and if I could sign on for 15% ownership, I'd probably grab it. I don't think I'm gonna. Again, I just imagine he just has to be chalky, but we'll see what happens. He's definitely my best play. Chicago, big surprise, and then all the other guys from Chicago. I mean, you can play Chandler Hutchinson, I guess, or Satoransky. All of them. Thad Young, Luke Cornett, Kobe White, but I don't think any of them are just that great. Is this going to be one of those Minnesota games like yesterday where you just have to presume one of them or two of them are going to get there and just play them? Maybe that's the way to attack it, because I couldn't imagine any one of these guys on their own being that popular. Like, maybe the combination of them have to take some ownership, I suppose, but I don't know why I would pick like Kobe White, for example, as to be any better than any of the other guys. Although also the other guy, Felicio too, right? So he's got to be included in the mix also. So I guess I'll let you hash that out, but I'm going to start with Zach LaVine. How about that? I'll be the easy guy. And on the New Orleans side, I don't know if I'm going to be paying up for these guys. I don't know if I'm going to go for the Drew Holidays or maybe even Lonzo. I might just stick with Zion and maybe the guy I play from New Orleans. I'm not sure. But I definitely like LaVine. I think he's in a tremendous spot. If I could get him in, great. I just don't know if I want to play lineups with these other Chicago guys and get them wrong. Maybe that's just being really immature about it. But that's the kind of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, this game is definitely the one that I'm having the most trouble with. Is there something I'm missing? Other than Dunn being out, which I guess is the reason, it just feels like a little bit over the top. But at the same time, I could see that really getting some guys some extra minutes. The guy who, forget his price for a second, because I don't love his price and his production lately, but the guy who you'd immediately think would benefit the most would be Satoransky, and then possibly LaVine. I think that they're both strongly in play. I think Chandler Hutchinson has an upside. What worries me is they'll sometimes let Shaq Harrison get extra run in these spots. So that's 12 minutes turning to 20, and all of a sudden it kind of kills some of your other guys. What I think is really, really interesting is that I wouldn't usually say this about playing New Orleans, but they need size. And New Orleans doesn't need to play with size. But because Zion Williamson is probably one of the 2 or 3 strongest men in the NBA at 19, I don't see how Luke Cornett is going to deal with him down low. I don't really see how Thaddeus Young is going to deal with him down low that easily. So my initial instinct is to try and play some Felicio. Having said that, though, I also could see Felicio getting run off the court. It's a tricky spot. I think you're looking at least one of their value guys. The guys I'm leaning towards are White and Hutchison for the extreme value, but I really like Satoransky as a tournament play. And I really like I think Thad Young you can get some exposure to. It's a good game environment. But you worry about guys like Archie getting some run.
He has been too.
He has been, but look, how many games have we missed Dunn though? I don't think we've missed Dunn really. I don't think I'm going to end up there with Archie, but I think that there's, maybe if I need exactly 31 somewhere, and I'm not playing Felicio in that one, I would prefer Felicio over Archie, I guess is what I'm saying.
No, I just mean that Archie's been getting some run as a function of why I don't need to play a scoring dependent Kobe White as chalk.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I do think that, with the minutes a little bit higher probably for White, maybe if you want to play him in GPPs, maybe it makes more sense than FanDuel. But as of right now, I definitely have him as one of the values. And even with the Cornet issue, I still think that it's really hard not to want to play Cornet. Like he could play multiple positions. I mean, they have to guard Ingram also and stuff. And they have enough. Favors is going to play. Hayes is going to play. So anybody with any size is kind of getting my attention on the Bulls because they really don't you've got Thad, who used to be a small forward when he was younger. You've got Cornet, who's I think a 3-4. And then you've got Felicio, who's truly a 5. But that's really it. There's nobody else who can match up with. I don't think you're going to have Arcidiacono on Brandon Ingram. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's just the way I'm looking at it. Probably have to have 1 Bull to 2 Bulls, but we're just trying to pick up value because there's so many great plays in the slate. And then on the New Orleans side, I don't know that. I think Zion is still too cheap. That was a nightmare matchup for him the other night, and I give him a lot of credit, by the way, for trying to take it right at Giannis. It didn't work every time. It did work a couple times. He got his shot blocked a few times. He got the ball stuffed really bad once. But he also just pounded over him and stole the ball from him and went back up for a layup. It was beautiful, kind of.
That was funny. That was a good one.
5 for 19, though, from the floor has me extremely interested. Alvin Gentry screaming at the team on the sideline, "What's the matter with you? How can you let Zion play 4 minutes without getting touches?" That has me excited to play Zion. And the lower ownership than I think it should be has me excited to play Zion. I think it happened a little quicker than I thought. I thought the ultimate ceiling for this team for this year was to let Brandon Ingram be the best player. Let him develop. Zion can be your guy next year. And Ingram's been great too. So I actually like Ingram, but I just think Zion just destroys this front line, and I just can't see how he doesn't eat up 1 million rebounds. I'm sort of losing interest in the Favors idea in general. But if he played the minutes, I think that he could put up a game. I'm just not going to play him. It is, and I think Holiday is still too cheap. I don't care that he had a bad game the other night. Assuming he somehow doesn't get traded before the deadline tonight, which would change things quite a bit. I think Holiday is still a terrific tournament play, but I certainly understand why people be skeptical. I would just point out that the main reason the Bulls have an elite defense against guards is because of Chris Dunn. So don't think that this is a bad matchup for either he or Lonzo. It's not. It's a good matchup for both of them. So I sort of like both those guys. That's where I'm leaning.
So one of the reasons, by the way, you're asking why, aside from Chris Dunn, I think that what people are I think Denzel Valentine being out, I guess that's opening up minutes. I guess
Valentine and Dunn.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other thing I would mention is I want to bring up another guy from this game if you want to play multiple guys. Someone that we talked about the other day. I don't even know if he worked out or not, but you maybe want to go back to JJ Redick at 3,600.
He was fine the other day. This is not the spot where you want to do it. The idea that night was to try and get exposure. Well, first of all, it was hard to find value. The idea that night was also to try and get exposure to Giannis and that game environment, as well as playing Harden. So that was the reason why that night. And he did play pretty well, but I just think it's probably a reach on this slate.
Okay. All right. Let's. I think that your idea of a Felicio is kind of ringing a bell for me. I'll have to look into that more.
It's weird though, because it's not like an ideal fit for him. He'll have to come out on the perimeter. I honestly don't know how they're going to guard Zion. That's partly why I like Zion so much.
Yeah. All right, so San Antonio at Portland. All right, this is a good game. This is two teams that are battling. You know what I mean? Like they I mean, these are the types of games that I think both these teams really, really want to win. Anyway, San Antonio, LMA 6,500, still a little cheap. Will probably show up in some models. I don't know if I'm going to do it. DeRozan even be my next guy, I suppose. The other thing I might consider doing,
I know what you're going to say.
What's that?
I know what you're going to say.
I don't know. I mean, I might try one of these guards. I don't know. I just don't know which one it's going to be. I might do some stupid Patty Mills play or somebody like that. It's just so hard to play Patty Mills over Kobe White when you think about it. So it's I don't know, but they seem similar in a weird way. You know what I mean? Yeah. Patty Mills can get hot too from three. And again, definitely don't try this at home, but those would be the guys I might take a shot on. But the real, I was gonna say, but the real fun obviously remains on the Portland side. Lillard at 10K, coming off we call it a dud, whatever it is, coming off of a regression, coming off a blowout, whatever it is. He's 10K. It's a decision. You know what I mean? It's 10K worth of salary on a slate where you have Harden and Westbrook and LeBron and Giannis. You know, I'm pretty sure he's going to be low owned again, just because of the other options there are. Again, I didn't really look at the ownership on him yet, so I'm not going to tell you not to play him. Certainly looks to be pretty decent. Second guy is I mentioned before is Whiteside, who looks to be a pretty good play. And he looks to be pretty cheap. But, again, if he's going to garner 25, 30% ownership, if I could pivot off of him to either pay up more for Embiid or a little bit, pay pretty much the same price for Vooch, I'm probably going to try it. Let's put it that way. And then the next guy is McCollum and Anthony, and I really just don't have much interest in either of them. The other guy who people might look at is the Ariza. Just because people are trying to find value tonight and he's going to probably play minutes. I don't think I'm going to do it, though. So for me, it's going to be either maybe one lineup with Lillard or something like that. And probably, as gross as it is, I might be off of this game a little bit.
Yeah.
Hard.
It's a tough slate because there's a lot of – if you fade the high-end guys, you can build some really interesting lineups with these mid-tier – I mean, not even mid. So I like Lillard. I just don't know that after watching what he's been doing, why they wouldn't just run a high trap against him like every time, especially San Antonio.
Yep.
So that's where I start feeling like you get open looks for McCollum and Carmelo, and I think they're both reasonable. And I know Carmelo was just terrible tonight, obviously. What did he play? How many minutes did he end up playing?
That was
26 amount. He was 0 for 5. I mean, that was really a bad call on my part. But I'm willing to go back and take a shot, but I'm not in love with it. I just think that playing Lillard here feels a little bit nerve-wracking to me because I think they will do what they can to get the ball out of his hands a little bit. This is an important game for these teams. So I like this game, but I don't really know where to go with it. Whiteside is obvious. I'm not a big fan of playing chalky Whiteside in general, but this is probably a little bit of a superior matchup than that's why I like your Vooch call. But Whiteside is certainly the guy you'd want to use in cash today if you were playing cash, or if you wanted someone really safe. But man, this is not. Even Ariza is in play, but I just don't feel. I could say that about everybody. I sound like one of the guys at companies I've worked with. I can't just name 700 players. So the guys I'm playing I'll have some LMA. I'm hoping that people look at this. I'm hoping the ownership projection is too high on him right now, and I think that it is. I think he's going to end up lower owned than that. And I think that he's so bad on back-to-backs that it doesn't throw me at all that he had a terrible back-to-back game the other night. I also think people aren't really onto the fact that DeMar DeRozan, since Kobe's passing, has taken more shots than he's ever taken in his life. Any 4-game stretch that you can find where he's averaging 20 shots a game, if he's shooting the ball 20 times and he's a very efficient player, and not to mention his assists are up, I think he's a very a very strong play here. You could get lucky, sneak into a double-double potentially because of the pace of the game. I think DeMar DeRozan is the off-the-board guy that you can play if you're doing one of those middling lineups.
Now, I'm going to say it a little differently. I actually think that even before the Kobe thing, he was really stepping it up. He's been getting assists pretty much all year with nobody really realizing it. And
no, but the assist part is true, but the shots have never been like this.
Well, but this is interesting. Something that you mentioned yesterday, which in the time that I've been dealing with, you never ever brought this up as when you talked about a player until yesterday, and I found it really, really interesting. And so I'm starting to look at this more. You were concerned about some guys, one of these guards' inability or unwillingness to kind of get to the free throw line. And I forget who it was you were talking about
D'Angelo
yesterday.
Russell.
Who was it?
D'Angelo Russell.
Right. So we never really talked about that. So I was just looking at some of these lines where look at these games where he's like double-digit free throw attempts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
DeMar DeRozan like driving to the rim. And that creates quite a floor when you're driving to the rim like that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And in must-win spots, I mean, even, with Aldridge missed some of these games, so you can sort of chalk that up. But, like, in general, like, 7,900, a guy can easily go out there and get you 50, especially if he keeps taking 20 shots and attacking the rim the way he has been. So I'm a big fan of him tonight. Also, there's no – you've got Whiteside, as a defender in there. Aldridge he can kill him in the mid-range here, DeRozan. It's just a matter of how much of him do we end up with on a slate where we really like all these other guys. And as of right now, I think I'm going to probably have less Whiteside than the field just because I find other guys I'd rather play in that price range, and I don't want to pay for the ownership.
The more I start building these things, I'm starting to realize why you need these Chicago guys. Now I'm starting to realize why some of these ownerships are the way they are. You're just gonna have to find a way to get some of these guys in, I think. All right, so let's get to Bobby's game. Houston at LA. Westbrook is questionable. Is that the latest?
That's the latest. I'm assuming Westbrook plays tonight. That's just me. I just don't. He doesn't miss games. Like, they're trying to do the resting thing with him this year, but like, he's never been that guy. And I'd have a hard time seeing him come back to LA where he went to college. I just have a hard time with him not playing in this game. I can't see it.
I like I'll give you my rankings. I like, given salaries, given everybody's playing or whatever, I like Westbrook more than Harden at these prices. So just take that for what it is. I don't know what the ownership's going to be on these guys, but I do like Westbrook more than Harden. I don't think I can get to Harden actually today, now that I'm looking at everything else. So on the LA side, I'll let you tell me which one to pick. Honestly, I can go either way between LeBron and Davis. I can make a case for either of them. I think they both look like really, really strong plays. And, honestly, I would have no shame about picking one and fading the other, or fading one, picking the other, playing them both, and not both together, but playing both in 50% of the lineups. I have no problem with that either. But the other guy I would throw in, again, just kind of not just because it's a nationally televised game, but couldn't hurt. Maybe Rondo at 4,100.
Yeah, I think he's an interesting pivot off the Chicago value. I think this game has a few interesting spots. First of all, I love Westbrook, assuming that he does play. Give me all the narratives, but more importantly, give me the rebounds. Without Capella and his rebound equity goes up so much, it's gonna be a combination of Tucker, Covington, and Cephalosha and Westbrook basically playing essentially the center type of role, like in terms of rebounding and then, whatever, getting out and trade, whatever it is. He won't be guarding the centers, but the other guys will. But he's going to have plenty of rebounding opportunity. And when that rebounding edge goes up, you're talking about a guy who can get you 20 rebounds. Not to mention him coming back to LA. This is their sort of new first team with a new line. I just feel good about Westbrook here tonight. I think that he's the guy I'm prioritizing as of right now. And I also love that just no one is going to play him. And it's hard for me to just overlook that for him right now. I wish he was a little bit cheaper, but I'm more than happy to play Westbrook all over the place tonight. He's definitely a guy I want to prioritize. It feels weird to pay more for him than AD because of the AD upside, which I think is really high here. But that would be my initial run, would be those two. And then I would put LeBron just barely behind AD in terms of the guys I want to target in this game. The fringe pieces, I think Covington is in play. I know it feels bad.
Oh, he's going to play? He's going to play?
I'm assuming he's going to play. He should be fine.
Okay.
They got him for a reason, but and I think he'll play minutes too. Like, I don't love him, but I just am throwing him out there if you wanted to do a little stack that he'll be maybe in one or two of my lineups. But I really like the both running back with either if you can get both LeBron or Davis v. Westbrook. I think that's a really good way to go. I also think that Kuzma's trending in the right direction, but I don't think I'm ready to play him yet. I think he's always a great tournament play because he can shoot himself into a game. I mean, you look at his logs, 35, 40 fantasy points, but then also at 18 and 12 and mixed in there. That's the kind of player he is. He's not consistent. And I don't mind Rondo as so it's an interesting situation because they have other guards who are pretty good defensively in KCP and Danny Green to try and cover, the Westbrook and all that. I personally am just going to say F it and play Westbrook. And I don't think I'm going to get into these fringe Laker pieces, but I'm kind of tempted just because it's a very good paced matchup where I could see Danny Green getting hot from three, and we're looking for value outside Chicago. So maybe he makes some sense. KCP could get hot from three. Maybe he makes some sense to get away from the Chicago value. But I would still focus heavily on the Chicago stuff and then pivot with maybe one of these guys in a certain spot here or there.
So this is a good test for what we talked about yesterday, that Houston is basically just laying down the law and saying, you know what, we're playing without a center, and that's just the way it's going to be. And they're picking exactly like the wrong team to try that against, I guess.
Basically, yeah.
Well, because the idea is that we talk about other teams. Oh boy, they need size to match up with the Lakers. So I wonder. I was originally going to say, boy, this would be an interesting game for McGee or Howard, but I think because it goes the other way, that they don't need them to get like rebounds and blocks and stuff like that in this game,
Yeah, I think you'll see some Davis.
I think Davis has like a 20 rebound floor tonight. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be crazy.
The only problem is when they do play all five, like his rebounds are way down this year. Like just,
is that right?
Terrible. Like he's having 5 and 4 rebound games because of the Howard McGee effect. That's why he's 9,700.
Okay.
But I would tend to agree that you'll see a little bit more of him at the 5 tonight. That I don't think the minutes will be just split directly between Howard and McGee. But I think that for the most part, that's who's going to be out there is Howard and McGee. Potentially they could have Kuzma because the way Houston plays, playing the 4 and Davis playing the 5. I think that's likely what you'll end up seeing a little bit of down the stretch, which gives, again, that's why I like Davis too. It's not just the rebounds. It's that he's around the rim, protecting the rim, blocking shots. Like they have these guys, in Houston. And the funny part is like PJ Tucker, actually, if I had to get a defender who I wanted to guard Anthony Davis, now Anthony Davis is going to light him up. But if there's one guy I'd like a guy like PJ Tucker to guard him. He's tough, he's physical, he can play guys who are much, much bigger. The other thing I want to say is that James Harden is one of the most here's the thing, he's not a great defender, but he is a terrific post defender. He's one of the better post defenders in the NBA that's an undersized guy. That's why they feel like they can get away with this for Houston. So you're going to see a lot of and Cephalosha is another one of those guys who can guard guys much bigger. So they've sort of done something interesting with all that. I would be curious to see when Jordan Bell is going to be back, how that sort of works out. But really, they just don't have – could you get an unprojected Hartenstein on the court? For sure. But I don't think that's where I'm going. As of right now, it's pretty heavy on Westbrook, tiny bit of Covington, no Harden for me tonight, even though that never feels good. But I'm leaning definitely Davis, James, I like a lot. There's probably going to be a player from this game in every one of my lineups, and there might very well be like 2 or 3. I just can't figure out who I really like as the third one because it's really hard to play LeBron, AD, and Westbrook.
Tough slate.
It's a tough slate. It's a lot of good options. And look what happens, on a night with a lot of good options. Like last night was a crazy one. There was tons of great plays and all this stuff. And the guy who sort of goes nuts is the guy going to Utah, and not just him. Like the Utah game, if you had Conley and Jokic, you were playing from way ahead last night.
Yep.
And that was the dud of the games. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to pick. That's why I could make a good case for stacking a lot of these games. I think that I would try and get Embiid in with Westbrook as my tournament like core. I really like that idea. And then look, if Westbrook is not going to play tonight, I think you can definitely fire Harden back up, even at 12-4. But I probably would lean elsewhere, to be honest, because I think the ownership won't make up for maybe what Giannis's upside is at his price, maybe what LeBron's or AD's are. So that's just sort of where I'm at. And also, I really, there's some middling guys that we're going to have to leave out that I really like. We talked about Zach LaVine and Zion, but I really like both those guys. So certainly don't have to pay up all the way everywhere tonight.
If you don't have one of those guys, though, between Giannis or Westbrook or LeBron or AD, I was going to say you're going to lose, but I guess you don't have to lose.
I don't think you have to because of the New Orleans game.
Yeah. I mean, if you really nail that one right, if you get 60 out of LaVine, which is certainly possible, right? And
you get 60 out of Zion too, by the way.
That's what I mean. And you get if you get 100 points or whatever out of LaVine and Zion, and maybe you get the whatever Chicago guy you get right, then you could deal with a half ceiling game out of one of those later games.
Yeah, exactly. And then also we've got don't forget, we've got the San Antonio-Portland game, which we can't figure out exactly what to do. Although I do like my call on DeRozan. Weird to say I like my call. I like my call on DeRozan, and I'm fine with LMA and Whiteside. I just, at this really high ownership, I'm just finding myself kind of wanting to go elsewhere. But then again, do I really have to if I'm going to play Westbrook in that lineup? Because I'm telling you right now, people are not playing Russ Westbrook right now. And that could end up it would not surprise me in the least bit if he's the highest scoring player on the slate. Forget price.
Well, let me ask you this. So so Westbrook is 10-2, right? And LeBron is 10-4. So they're pretty much the same price, right?
Yeah.
So the good thing is I happen to probably like LeBron more than Westbrook, just for the hell of it. If I'm going to be playing Vooch, I'm going to know really, really quickly if I need to pivot to the lower owned guy in the later game. So that's good news. Maybe I'll end up having to go to Lillard after all that, So it's I kind of like the way I'm starting off. Actually, I put a little.
No one's going to play Westbrook. It's not because of LeBron. It's because of Lillard and LeBron.
Right.
You see Lillard 200 cheaper and LeBron 200 more, and your eyes are going to go away. Now, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't point out that other than basically Dame going completely nuts, Russell Westbrook has been he's been the best point per dollar superstar of anybody in basketball when he's played over the last month. 69, 60, 70.70, 69, 69, 52, 66, 58, 41 in that one New Orleans game where he shot the ball poorly.
Right.
Look, I would take 69 from Westbrook tonight. And I think, it sounds crazy. I'm very into him. I'm not suggesting everybody else lock him in or anything like that. Partly I'm biased going to the game and all that, and I love Westbrook and it's LA and all the things. I just think he's going to smash here. I really do. And if he plays, I think you want to get him at really, really, really low ownership because I just don't see people going there. And if you can get Westbrook and Embiid as a start off, I think that you're going to already have different lineups where you don't have to worry about who's doing what.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So anyway, so just to go through the ownerships where I've got sort of people at this, I've got Westbrook as my number one play of the day right now. And of course, I'm a GPP player. Don't play this guy in cash game. That's not the right move. But this is the right guy for a tournament. If you're playing cash games, you can play Davis, you can play Embiid, you can play the other guys I mentioned, but not Westbrook in cash games, especially not knowing, what's going to happen at 7:30. So Westbrook's my guy. And then I've got a tier of guys who I just love, but unfortunately they're all expensive. So AD, Joel Embiid, Zion, LaVine, Kobe White, same range. Kobe White's the one cheap one, just because I need the value. And then I've got Giannis just beneath them. God, it's so gross. And LeBron just beneath them with Kornet, Satoransky. A little bit lower, I've got Vucevic, DeRozan, Aldridge, Hutchison. I might end up getting a little bit more Hutchison. Ben Simmons is in that range. Tobias Harris is in that range. So I'm going to have to make some decisions to see how I can fit these in. I think that we're stuck with the Chicago value for the moment, but look, this is the NBA. We're probably going to hear about something opening up. And also you can, if if we think MCW is going to get less ownership, which I think he will, than the other guys in Chicago, maybe you play him. But he's also going to have a little bit of ownership too, because people want to play the studs tonight. It's kind of been frustrating on these giant slates where we've had all these studs and all these value, and we haven't had real true studs like, the Hardens and all that they keep playing on these nights where there's, like no value, these small slates. I would like to get these guys on big slates so I could find a way to plug in 2 or 3 of them, because I think a couple of these guys are absolutely going to smash tonight.
And my last thing, and I don't know if I should get used to doing this, but I just had fun doing this. So I do want to put like 2 or 3 guys that, after review, that given ownership the way it is now, right? And given the way it looks now, if I had to pick like 3 guys, I kind of want to whatever. I wouldn't say Levine just because he's looking to be like 25%, right? Even though I love him a lot. I think my favorite plays are going to be Vooch at low ownership, and what Bobby just said is Westbrook. Those would be my 2 favorite. They both have very natural pivots, you know what I mean? And I think that they both have, the possibility of really getting somewhere. So those would be my 2 kind of favorites if I had to pick 2.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you on this. All right, man. So that sounds pretty good. Guys, hit us up on Twitter. Please give us the like, the thumbs up. We really appreciate a lot of the positive feedback we've been getting lately. We've got another we've got stuff in cooking. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And, we appreciate you guys tuning in with us. And we will be back with you shortly.